"You're not supposed to be here," I whispered to myself as the rain hammered against the marble tiles of the hotel lobby, each droplet bursting tiny explosions across the polished floor. My name is Ava Mitchell, and at 24, I've worked enough shifts as a hotel maid to know that the world outside these doors could be colder than the storm I was running through. My hands shook as I balanced a tray of spotless glasses, their crystal edges reflecting the flickering chandelier lights, and every instinct screamed at me to move faster. But the tile beneath my feet felt slick, betraying me with each hurried step. That's when I saw it. A door left slightly ajar, the brass handle glinting under the dim hallway light. I thought it was an empty storage room, a shortcut back to the staff stairwell. But as soon as I turned the knob, the air shifted. It wasn't empty. The room smelled faintly of leather and polished wood, a scent far removed from the antiseptic cleaning supplies I was used to. And then he stepped forward, tall, impossibly composed, dark hair slicked back, the kind of presence that could make a room go still without a sound. Lucas Hawthorne. I didn't know his name yet, but I could feel the weight of it in the air, the quiet authority that told me this man controlled more than just the space he stood in. My tray wobbled in my hands, glasses clinking like warning bells, and I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself to step back. He didn't move, just watched, his IT eyes measuring me. And in that instant I realized I had stumbled into something far larger than a mistaken door. I tried to speak, to apologize, but the words caught in my throat as the storm outside hammered against the windows, drowning out my heartbeat. My pulse raced, each thump echoing in my ears as I took an involuntary step forward, only to slip slightly on the marble, my body instinctively lurching toward him. Without a word, he reached out, just enough to steady me, and the touch, firm yet controlled, sent a jolt through my chest that I couldn't name. My mind scrambled for logic, for reason, for a way to make sense of why I was standing here. Suddenly so aware of his presence, of every shadow cast across his tailored suit, of the quiet power in his stance. And then the door clicked shut behind me, the sound final and inescapable. And I realized there was no turning back, not until he allowed it. My feet felt rooted to the floor, muscles tense, every fiber of me aware that I had walked straight into a world I had only glimpsed in whispered rumors and hotel gossip, a world of silent rules, hidden hierarchies, and the kind of control that made even the staff tread lightly. He didn't speak, but the weight of his gaze pressed against my chest, demanding acknowledgement, recognition, and something else I couldn't yet name. My mind raced, tracing every exit to every potential escape route, but even as I considered bolting, I found myself taking another step closer, drawn inexplicably into his orbit. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark white for a heartbeat, and in that moment I saw the lines of his face, the precision, the calm calculation, and I understood that nothing about this encounter would be ordinary. The tray slipped slightly again, a glass tilting, and without a hint of alarm, he moved just enough to catch it, steadying my hands, and in that act, I sensed a paradox. Power wrapped in restraint, authority tempered by subtle care. I swallowed, breath shallow, heart still hammering, and realized I was trapped not by force, but by inevitability. The storm outside continued to rage, but in this small room, a different kind of storm brewed, one I couldn't yet name. One that would pull me into a world I had never asked to enter and yet somehow could not escape. The hallway smelled faintly of polished wood and lavender air freshener, a sharp contrast to the storm raging outside. Ava's hand still trembled slightly as she set the tray down on the side table, each step cautious, aware that Lucas's gaze followed every motion. The soft click of her shoes against the marble floor echoed through the quiet space, mingling with the distant rumble of thunder. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath, and forced herself to look at him, to acknowledge his presence without letting fear take over completely. Lucas remained still, leaning slightly against the doorframe, his posture relaxed yet undeniably commanding, a living paradox that drew attention without a word. She could feel the weight of expectation pressing down, the unspoken understanding that any sudden move could shift the balance between caution and danger. As her pulse slowly settled, she noticed a subtle detail, a faint crease along his sleeve. The way the light caught the glint of a wristwatch, the measured calm in his stance, and she realized that everything about him was precise, deliberate, controlled. A small part of her wondered how someone could maintain such composure while inhabiting a world so fraught with power and unspoken rules. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, noting the subtle luxuries she would never have imagined encountering. A well-polished desk with papers neatly stacked, a single chair placed with exact symmetry, the soft hum of climate control blending into the background. It was meticulous, ordered, and yet somehow intimidating. Lucas' gaze shifted slightly following her glance around the room, but he did not speak. Instead, he allowed the silence to hang. A silent test of her presence, her poise, her ability to navigate the tension without faltering. Ava felt a shiver run down her spine, partly from the residual chill of the rain on her skin, partly from the intensity of being observed so completely. She took a measured step closer to the desk, letting her hands brush lightly over the surface, as though seeking some connection to the ordinary in the midst of the extraordinary. Luke's eyes did not waver, but she sensed the faintest softening at the corners of his mouth, a hint that beneath the rigid authority, there existed awareness, perhaps even curiosity about her resilience, her composure under pressure. She set the tray aside entirely, allowing herself a brief exhale, and realized that the room, once overwhelming, was now a stage where they each measured the other in silence, a delicate dance of observation and reaction. The storm outside intensified, lightning flashing through the tall windows, casting brief, stark shadows that seemed to animate the room. And Ava caught herself studying Lucas's reflection in the glass, seeing both the authority and the subtle traces of humanity, and wondering how one man could encompass such contradiction. A distant from the hotel lobby reminded her of the world she had left behind, a life defined by routine, service, and simplicity. And yet, standing here, under Lucas's watchful gaze, she understood that something irreversible had begun. Her breath steadied, her fingers relaxed, and in that suspended moment, the quiet tension suggested 1,000 possibilities, each one unfolding in the unspoken language between them. And she realized that she had stepped into a world that would demand vigilance, intuition, and courage in equal measure. Lucas finally shifted, a subtle movement that did not break the spell of control, but signaled acknowledgement, a silent invitation for her to act, to move, to respond. And Ava understood that the next step she took would define the course of this encounter. A choice that would determine whether she remained on the periphery, or stepped fully into the orbit of a power far greater than any she had known. All the while the rain outside continued its relentless cadence, a reminder of the storm both literal and metaphorical that she had entered, and of the delicate balance between fear and trust, observation and action, that now governed every heartbeat and every decision within the quiet, charged space of the room. Ava's breathing steadied slightly as she moved toward the window, the city lights outside flickering through the sheets of rain, painting streaks of gold and red across the room. She pressed her hands against the cool glass, feeling the contrast between the warmth of the interior and the chill of the storm beyond. Lucas remained near the door, silent, a watchful presence, his posture calm yet commanding, making the space between them feel charged with unspoken expectation. She turned slowly to look at him, catching the faintest hint of acknowledgement in his eyes, and for a moment, the tension did not feel threatening, but measured, deliberate, a careful study of her reactions. Each subtle movement, the tilt of her head, the slight adjustment of her sleeve, seemed to register with him, and she realized that he was not just observing but assessing. The way someone accustomed to control evaluates the smallest variable. Ava's thoughts raced, tracing every potential step, every exit route, every action that could shift the balance. Yet something in his composed stillness suggested that haste would not be rewarded, that patience and clarity were required to navigate the encounter. She allowed herself to take another measured step closer to the desk, noticing the impeccable order, the quiet attention to detail in the placement of objects, the subtle hum of devices in the corner that spoke of efficiency and careful oversight. Luke's eyes followed, but he made no motion to intervene, letting the silence speak volumes, each heartbeat between them amplified by the quiet space. She found herself studying the lines of his face, the precise arch of his brow, the calm calculation behind his gaze, and she understood that the power he held extended beyond physical presence into an aura of certainty and control that dominated the environment without force. A flash of lightning outside illuminated the room briefly, casting stark shadows that danced along the walls and floors, and Ava caught a reflection of herself in the window, small and ordinary against the magnitude of his presence, yet curiously aware that she was being seen in a way no one else had looked at her before. The juxtaposition of her vulnerability and his observation created a delicate tension, not of threat but of recognition. An acknowledgement that her actions and choices mattered in the moment, and that the smallest gesture could shift the course of their interaction. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the encounter press and release in measured pulses, and for the first time she considered that she might not be entirely at his mercy, that there was room to respond, to act, to establish her own measure within the space he commanded. The rain outside continued its steady assault against the windows, the sound like a metronome marking the rhythm of possibility and risk, and Ava's fingers flexed slightly against the glass, sensing the intersection of ordinary life and a world governed by rules she was only beginning to perceive. Lucas shifted subtly, a faint adjustment that drew her gaze, and she realized it was a gesture of acknowledgement, of patience, an unspoken invitation to continue forward, to navigate the room, the moment, and the choices before her. She straightened, adjusted her stance, and allowed herself to take one careful step toward the center of the room, aware that each movement was observed, measured, yet also given space to exist. And she understood that this delicate equilibrium of observation and action, of restraint and subtle power, was the first step into a world where every decision mattered and where trust, attention, and intuition would become as vital as breath itself, all under the quiet, steady weight of a presence that had already begun to shape the rhythm of her evening, and perhaps the trajectory of everything to come. Ava took a hesitant step toward the center of the room, her fingers brushing the edge of the polished desk, and she could feel the subtle shift in the air as Lucas observed her, silent, measuring, waiting. The storm outside had not let up, the rain streaking the tall windows with rhythmic precision, and the soft hum of the climate control in the room created a quiet counterpoint to the relentless patter outside. She tilted her head slightly, glancing at the carefully arranged papers and the faint glint of a pen set perfectly parallel to the edge of the desk, noticing for the first time the meticulous attention to detail in everything he controlled. Lucas's posture remained composed, yet she sensed a slight movement of his hand, a micro-adjustment that betrayed his awareness of her observation, a silent signal that he acknowledged her presence without needing to speak. She exhaled slowly, letting the tension ease slightly in her shoulders, and allowed herself a brief moment to process the strangeness of the encounter. A world so foreign, so structured, yet dominated by an unseen code that demanded respect and attentiveness. The quiet of the room was punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder, and she could feel the weight of time stretching, each second filled with unspoken evaluation. Her pulse had slowed marginally, but the awareness of being observed persisted, a constant reminder that every motion, every choice, carried significance here. Ava shifted her gaze toward the window once more, the city lights flickering through the sheets of rain like scattered fireflies, and she felt an odd mixture of apprehension and curiosity, the kind that comes when one is suddenly aware of stepping into a space governed by rules unspoken yet undeniable. Lucas finally moved, a step forward, the movement deliberate and slow, and she sensed in it a blend of authority and invitation, a way of allowing her presence while subtly guiding the interaction. She adjusted her stance again, hands loosely clasped in front of her, and allowed herself to focus on the immediate reality. The quiet room, the measured light, the patter of rain, and the man whose gaze had become a compass she could not yet decipher. As she stood there, a small detail caught her eye, the subtle reflection of his eyes in the glass, not harsh, not intimidating, but steady, precise, and deeply attentive. She realized then that the moment demanded her full awareness, that every thought, every glance, every micro-movement was now a part of an intricate exchange, one that required caution, reflection, and presence of mind. The storm outside continued unabated, rain cascading down in relentless sheets. Yet within this room a different current flowed, quiet but charged, a conversation without words that spoke of power, control, and an unspoken understanding between two people measuring one another. Ava's breath slowed further, her mind alert to the possibilities, aware that the room was no longer simply a space of work or duty, but a stage upon which the next steps of her evening, and perhaps much more, would unfold. Lucas shifted once more, a subtle nod, and she understood it as both acknowledgement and instruction, an invitation to navigate the next moments with care, awareness, and the tentative confidence that she could meet the rhythm of this new, charged environment while retaining a measure of her own agency, all while the relentless storm outside marked the passage of time. Its sound a constant reminder of the boundary between the ordinary world and the one into which she had now stepped. Ava felt the subtle shift in the room as Lucas took a step closer, the air between them thick with expectation yet free from any hostility, a measured intensity that demanded attention without force. The polished marble reflected the dim light in fractured patterns, stretching across the room and tracing the edges of their presence with delicate precision. She adjusted the tray in her hands, feeling the faint vibration of her pulse through the polished wood beneath her fingertips, aware that every movement, however small, was being observed, catalogued, understood. Lucas remained still, his posture elegant, controlled, a quiet authority that filled the room without a single word, and Ava found herself simultaneously drawn to and cautious of the invisible weight of his scrutiny. Her eyes swept across the subtle details around them. The perfectly aligned chairs, the faint gleam of a pen lying at a precise angle, the meticulous order of the room that contrasted sharply with the storm raging outside. She could feel the rhythm of the rain against the window, a relentless cadence that mirrored the rapid beat of her own heart. And she wondered how someone could inhabit such calm and control amidst such power and potential consequence. A flicker of light from the passing lightning illuminated the fine lines of Lucas's face, revealing subtle hints of consideration and thought, a depth that suggested awareness beyond the surface impression of control and composure. Ava took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the tension ease fractionally in her shoulders as she allowed herself to take one measured step closer, conscious of the gap that separated them both physically and metaphorically. The quiet hum of the climate system filled the background, a steady constant against the irregular patterns of the storm, providing a canvas upon which the unspoken dialogue between them played out, measured, subtle, potent. She could sense the careful balance he maintained, the way his presence influenced her posture, her attention, her breathing, and she realized that each action she took would be interpreted, weighed, and responded to with precision, making the room a stage for a silent negotiation of space, presence, and intention. The soft reflection of his eyes in the glass captured her attention, and she noted the absence of judgment, replaced instead by attentive observation, a quiet insistence on awareness, and a subtle invitation to meet his gaze with composure. Her mind raced through scenarios, weighing possibilities, while her body remained poised, aware that the storm outside was not the only force shaping this moment, that within these walls, the dynamics of control, understanding, and careful interaction defined the environment and demanded her engagement. She shifted slightly, allowing her hands to relax, her feet to adjust, and felt the invisible threads of connection and attention tighten. A silent acknowledgement of her presence and participation in a space where awareness and subtlety held power equal to the overt strength of his stance. The rain continued, relentless, yet within the room a dialogue without words unfolded, a tension of observation and measured response that required every bit of her focus, her intuition, and her poise, reminding her that this encounter was the threshold of something far larger, a careful balance between restraint and engagement, attention and movement, all conducted under the quiet, commanding weight of his gaze, which both anchored and guided her through the charged atmosphere of the room. Ava felt the tension in the room shift subtly as Lucas stepped closer, his movements precise, deliberate, yet measured in a way that gave her the smallest hint of control over her own steps. She adjusted her stance, grounding herself against the polished marble floor, the cool surface beneath her shoes offering a silent reminder of stability amid the storm of sensory and emotional intensity around them. The rain outside continued to hammer against the windows in rhythmic persistence, each drop sending tiny vibrations across the glass, blending with the distant rumble of thunder and the faint hum of the climate system within the room. Ava's mind traced every detail in the space, the subtle gleam of the pen resting perfectly on the desk, the way the light caught the edge of a leather-bound notebook, the precise alignment of chairs that seemed more than functional, almost ceremonial. Lucas's eyes followed her movement, unwavering, yet not oppressive, conveying a presence that demanded awareness without forcing compliance. She exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders ease fractionally as she allowed herself a deliberate, measured step closer, feeling the invisible currents of power, observation, and anticipation swirl between them. Each micro-movement she made was noted, cataloged, and integrated into the silent conversation that stretched across the space, a dialogue conducted entirely through posture, gaze, and the careful modulation of presence. Her fingers traced lightly along the edge of the desk, grounding herself, while her gaze met his, seeking understanding, clarity. A thread of connection in a world that had suddenly become both alien and consequential. The storm outside cast fleeting shadows across the room, the lightning illuminating fragments of their reflections in the glass, revealing subtle shifts in expression, in posture, in the spaces between thought and action. Ava noted the quiet attentiveness in his eyes, the almost imperceptible softening of lines that suggested awareness, recognition, perhaps even the faintest glimmer of trust in her ability to navigate this charged space. She allowed her breath to lengthen, steadying her heart rate, feeling the rhythm of the storm outside resonate with the rhythm of her own awareness, and she realized that the room was no longer merely a place of work or duty, but a space defined by negotiation, intuition, and the delicate balance of perception and presence. Lucas shifted subtly, a micro-adjustment that suggested a silent invitation for her to continue, to explore the room, to act within its bounds, yet with full awareness of the invisible framework that governed it. Ava's gaze swept once more across the polished surfaces, the soft glow of lights, the faint hum of machinery, each element a subtle cue in the unspoken structure that surrounded her, guiding her thoughts, her actions, and her awareness. She straightened, lifting her chin fractionally, her posture deliberate enough to convey agency while respecting the silent weight of his observation. And in that measured stance, she sensed the beginning of understanding, the first thread of equilibrium in a space defined by observation, attention, and the careful interplay of presence, all under the quiet, commanding influence of a man whose control extended beyond the visible, into the very rhythm of perception, decision, and interaction within the charged atmosphere of the room. Ava felt a shift in the air as she took another careful step, the polished marble beneath her shoes echoing faintly with each movement. Lucas remained still near the doorway, yet the subtle tilt of his head suggested he was tracking her with precise attention, noting her balance, the tension in her shoulders, the careful modulation of her breathing. The rain outside continued in steady rhythm, the light of street lamps reflecting in silver streaks across the glass, creating a shifting tapestry of shadow and glow that danced across the room. Ava allowed her gaze to follow the patterns of light for a moment, using it as a way to center herself, to find composure amid the charged atmosphere, aware that every micro-expression, every slight gesture was being observed and interpreted. Her fingers brushed the edge of a side table, noting the coolness of the surface and the meticulous order of objects atop it, the pen perfectly aligned with the corner, the small notepad squared precisely alongside, all details revealing a world of exacting control that contrasted with the uncertainty she had entered with. Lucas's eyes met hers for the briefest moment, holding her attention, conveying calm, expectation, and an unspoken challenge to navigate the space with awareness. She inhaled slowly, letting the rhythm of her breath match the measured cadence of the storm outside, feeling a strange alignment between internal focus and external chaos. The quiet hum of the building's systems added a layer of constancy, a backdrop to the intricate, silent communication unfolding between them. Each pause and slight shift weighted with significance. Ava moved deliberately toward a window, noticing the way the city lights reflected in the wet streets below, a blur of movement and color that mirrored the internal whirl of calculations, judgments, and anticipations swirling in her mind. Lucas did not advance, but a subtle flex of his hand and a soft narrowing of his eyes suggested encouragement, an invitation to proceed thoughtfully, to engage with the environment and the moment fully. Ava adjusted her stance, grounding herself through subtle shifts of weight, feeling the cool floor under her feet, the pulse of her own heart echoing in her ears, and she sensed the beginning of a rhythm, an understanding that each measured action could establish a tentative equilibrium in the room. She scanned the room with heightened awareness, noting the interplay of light, surface, and shadow, the faint alignment of furniture and objects that spoke of intentionality. And she recognized that Lucas's observation extended beyond presence into perception, a subtle mapping of space and movement that demanded respect, composure, and focus. The storm outside offered a relentless soundtrack, a reminder of the world beyond these walls, yet inside a different kind of energy flowed, composed of unspoken observation, careful assessment, and the potential for cautious engagement. Ava's gaze met his once more, and the quiet intensity of that look, steady and deliberate, conveyed both expectation and acknowledgement, a recognition of her presence, her agency, and the careful negotiation of space and action required to navigate this charged environment. With a deliberate exhale, she adjusted her shoulders, lifted her chin slightly, and stepped with measured care toward the center of the room, aware that each moment here was both an observation and an opportunity. A silent dialogue of movement, presence, and awareness unfolding under the steady, commanding weight of his gaze as the storm continued to mark time beyond the walls, a constant echo of the boundary between ordinary life and the extraordinary space she now inhabited. Ava felt a heightened sense of awareness as the room seemed to contract around her, the polished marble reflecting both the dim overhead lights and the steady streaks of rain against the tall windows. Each step she took was measured, deliberate, her hands lightly brushing against the edge of the desk for orientation and grounding, and she could sense the subtle shift in Lucas's stance, the imperceptible lean forward that suggested attention, patience, and an unspoken expectation for her next move. The storm outside continued with relentless rhythm, the flashes of lightning momentarily illuminating the edges of the room, casting long, fleeting shadows across the floor and furniture, emphasizing the contrast between the world beyond and the charged space they inhabited. Ava's eyes moved carefully across the room, noting the meticulous order in the placement of objects, the careful alignment of papers, the gleam of polished surfaces, all evidence of a presence that maintained precision and control in every detail. Lucas's gaze remained steady on her, not invasive, not threatening, but precise, compelling, an invisible measure of her awareness, poise, and engagement. She took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the subtle rhythm of her pulse in her ears, and allowed herself a moment of observation, noting the faint patterns in his expressions, the way the corner of his mouth slightly lifted in acknowledgement of her measured movements, the quiet assurance that he was present but not intrusive, creating a space of tension balanced by subtle guidance. Ava shifted her weight slightly, grounding herself further, her mind racing through possibilities and strategies for maintaining composure and presence in a space that demanded both attention and restraint. She noticed the reflection of the storm in city lights in the glass and recognized the duality of the environment, both external chaos and internal calm, coexisting in the same space, each shaping her perception, each demanding careful navigation. Lucas's eyes followed her motion, tracing each subtle gesture, each micro-adjustment, and she felt a strange sense of alignment, the silent dialogue between them unfolding through posture, gaze, and attention rather than words. The room's quiet hum, the intermittent roll of thunder, and the steady rainfall created a rhythm that mirrored the internal tension and awareness, reinforcing the subtle interplay of control, observation, and anticipation. Ava allowed herself another small step forward, her movements deliberate yet flexible, responding to the unspoken cues in Lucas's stance. Understanding that each step, each adjustment, was part of a delicate negotiation of presence, power, and measured interaction. She lifted her chin slightly, squared her shoulders, and felt the faint shift in the air as Lucas's gaze conveyed both acknowledgement and expectation, an unspoken invitation to continue navigating the space with awareness and composure. The storm outside provided a constant reminder of the world beyond, yet within the room, a different current of engagement flowed, composed of attention, patience, and a carefully balanced tension, where every subtle movement and measured breath contributed to the evolving connection and understanding between them. Ava exhaled slowly, her mind and body aligned with the rhythm of the room, ready to navigate the next moments with focused intuition and deliberate awareness, fully immersed in the charged, precise, controlled environment that Lucas created. With every silent, measured gesture and every quiet, commanding glance, Ava took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the room settle around her as if it were holding its own anticipation. Lucas's presence was measured, and yet it carried a subtle invitation that demanded awareness and reflection rather than immediate action. The storm outside had not abated. The rain streaked the tall windows in continuous sheets, the sound of persistent, rhythmic drum against the glass, blending with the quiet hum of the climate system inside the room. She allowed her gaze to follow the streaks of light reflected on the wet streets below, noting the shifting patterns and the way they played across the floor, her mind drawing parallels to the tension, observation, and unspoken dialogue she navigated with Lucas. Her hands brushed lightly along the desk, fingertips grazing the edge, feeling the cool, smooth surface, grounding herself in a world that was both familiar and foreign, ordinary and charged with significance. Lucas observed as he had all along, his eyes capturing the slightest adjustments in her posture, every subtle exhalation, the minute shifts in her stance, creating a silent map of attention, presence, and response. She exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders ease, and allowed her mind to process the rhythm of the encounter, the delicate balance of observation, patience, and awareness that defined the space between them. The soft glint of his wristwatch caught her eye in the fleeting light, a reminder of precision control and the unspoken expectation that every movement mattered. Ava felt a strange sense of alignment, the realization that she was both observed and allowed space to act, the tension neither oppressive nor absent, but a measured current that guided her attention and choices. She took a careful step forward, her fingers grazing the side of the polished desk for support, and felt the subtle shift in Lucas' stance, the smallest adjustment that indicated acknowledgement, attentiveness, and perhaps a trace of encouragement. The storm outside mirrored the internal rhythm of her awareness, steady and unyielding, yet within the room, a dialogue without words unfolded. Each micro-movement, each measured breath, a negotiation of presence, composure, and understanding. Ava adjusted her shoulders, lifted her chin slightly, and felt the first faint sense of equilibrium in the charged environment, recognizing the interplay between observation, action, and the unspoken connection forming in the silent space. Lucas's gaze held hers, steady and deliberate, conveying recognition, expectation, and quiet patience, and she understood that the next steps she took would be part of this evolving rhythm, a careful balance of awareness, intuition, and engagement. The reflection of lightning illuminated the edges of the room, highlighting the meticulous order of objects, the precise alignment of papers and furniture, each detail reinforcing the deliberate structure of the environment and the control Lucas maintained within it. Ava exhaled, feeling her pulse and breath synchronize with the measured cadence of the room and the storm beyond, sensing that the moment had shifted, that she was no longer simply navigating a space, but participating in a silent, deliberate, and evolving dialogue of presence, perception, and careful engagement that would define the unfolding trajectory of her evening and the world she had entered, all under the steady, attentive, and commanding weight of his gaze.